I picked up an old radio. This was a 1946 GE. It's a model CL541. So post-war, 5-tube, AA5 design, AC/DC. Let's see if we can make this one work. Picked up an old radio. I think this one's worthy of restoration. First things first, it's going to need a new power cord. That doesn't look very safe, does it? Wires exposed, probably going to need more than the power cord replaced. It's going to need capacitors. The paper caps are going to have to go for starters. I'm not even going to plug this unit in until I've had a look at the interior and see what it needs. And then we'll proceed to rebuild it. Now, the person I got this from told me that they plugged it in and it worked, which is always not a good thing. If someone's tried it, don't like to hear that, because that means that they powered it up with old caps in here, and there's a chance that they may have caused damage even if they only ran it for a couple of minutes. It's always recommended with these old units that you do not power them up until, at a minimum, the paper caps have been replaced. And well, they haven't been done, I'm sure, on this. I'm just looking to see. It was made by Canadian General Electric. We'll get a look at the chassis, and then I will look up and see what vintage this one's from and grab a manual for it while I'm at it. So this is the chassis. Ooh, look at this thing. It's an AC/DC radio, so there's no transformer on this one. And it's got a complement of 5 tubes. So this is a 5-tube radio. The filaments are obviously going to be in series with each other. It's got an antenna on the back. If we look in the bottom here, we'll see that it's loaded with our wonderful paper caps, which do need to go for sure. And of course the power cord. Looks like someone's already replaced this power cord once. This is not the original cord. It's been tacked on here with some black tape. We're going to remove this first. This power cord is going to definitely be replaced, but as I say, this is not the original cord. Well, look at that. They didn't even solder it on. They just tied this, cloth wrap cord on. The original cord actually was probably better than the one that they put on, whoever put that on. But we will definitely deal with the power cord while we are at it. And yeah, it looks safe, doesn't it? That's a fire waiting to happen right there. But we will take care of the power cord. But first things first, we're going to change out all the old caps. That cap there looks like it's been changed at one point, because it's just hanging there, and there's one lead that's taped off. Looks like somebody has worked on this in the past. This is a 150 volt and 25 volt cap, so there's actually 3 caps in here. There's a couple red, which is 50 microfarads at 150 volts, and the green is 20 microfarads at 25 volts, and the green one is taped off. So someone has put a couple caps in here, but or replaced this one replaced a big filter with this one, and just stuck it in place with tape. So that work has been done, but that's not going to work. We're going to have to change all these capacitors out, and that way we can make this radio work again properly. And that will all be done before I plug this one in. So first things first, let's go find a schematic. Okay, the radio is actually post-war. 1946-47 was when this one was made. I got a schematic. I got it from the radiomuseum.org. If you're looking for old radio schematics, this is the place to find them. I've got the schematic for it here. And, well, look at the tubes this one's got. It's got a 35 Z5 rectifier. It uses, for audio output, a 50L6 GT. For a detector, it's a 12 SQ7. IFM is a 12 SK7. And the oscillator and converter is a 12 SA7. Those are the tube complements. But first things first, let's get in and change the capacitors on this one. And we'll change the paper caps out and then we can power this one up for the first time. Oh, and of course, change the power cord. But let's get in first. I'm going to go get my box of caps and we'll change out these caps. There's not that many that need to be changed. I have to change 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus this electrolytic here, oh, and one on the back here. Although this one on the back, I don't know what that does. I think it's just a couples the antenna. So that one probably won't make much of a difference, but we will change it anyway. Let me go grab my box of various high voltage caps, and I'm sure that I've got values that will work on this, and I won't have to make any special trips in to buy parts to get this one running. I like to always start from the top and work my way down, so we'll start up at this first cap here. I'm just going to cut it out of the circuit because, well, that's how we get these things out. That makes sense. Okay, this one here is a, what is this one? This is a 0.2 at 400 volts. Well, this one is a 0.22, so a 0.22 is certainly going to be in the ballpark and will be perfectly acceptable. Yeah, that one will go in there quite nicely. It's connected up to this coil. Hook these together, give them a bit of a twist. Make a good solid physical connection and then solder them together. So why do we go to this trouble to change out these caps like this? Well, the reason that we do it is because these old paper condensers, what happens with them after they've been sitting around for 75 years or so, is that the paper that was used to insulate the two metal plates, it breaks down. This is a 0.05, so a 0.047 will be what goes in there. It breaks down, and once it breaks down, it becomes resistive. It turns the capacitor basically into a resistor. And with tube circuits, with tube equipment, they are very high impedance devices. A little bit of leakage when they're being used as a blocking capacitor to block the high voltage DC from the previous stage. A little bit of DC voltage leaking through to the grid of the next stage will bias that tube on and will destroy it. So looking for a 0.047. Okay, this wire here, where does it go? This comes up to tuning capacitor. Okay. So we'll just solder it onto this wire here, inside of it. and the other side to the coil. If you're wondering when I picked this radio up for, I paid $20 for it, which I consider to be a great deal for a 75-year-old radio. So we'll just get that one out of the way. Next one is another one down here. This is one that is one of the, looks like a coupling cap. Goes down here. So we'll just cut this one out of the way and take it right out of the circuit. And this one went from here down to here, which is of course also connected to this tube here. So I can just put this one right across here. I don't have to go down to where it was. I can just put this one between the coil and the tube, and that way the leads will be more than long enough on this one. Cut the lead off that was in here before. That way I can use the insulator. This one here has been, looks like this one's was melting. It was so hot. It looks like this was probably really bad, this one. But this one went across a tube. It's probably coupling one stage of one tube to another. This is definitely a critical one, but you can see how this one was failing. So this one here, negative, or the outside shield went down to here. So it'd be the grid side, and that'd be the plate side, I would think. For this is probably the audio output. I will put the shielding over this one just because we're in here with a bunch of other wires and I don't want to get anything shorting out. Power cord's also got to go. just going to cut this old power cord out of the way just to get this thing out of the way right now, because it's all shot anyway, but we'll just get it out of the way right now. So it'll probably crumble when I go to pull it through. Yeah, it was a fire waiting to happen. Any of these old dinosaurs that you work on, you really got to pay close attention to the insulation on the wires, because some of the wires themselves are, the insulation is just to the point where it's just crumbling like this. It always has to be replaced. The wires have to be redone. I did a 1930, I think it's a 1932 Rogers Majestic that I have, and I actually had to replace all the wires. Like every one of the wires themselves had all deteriorated. This one here is not in bad shape. It's actually in pretty good shape considering how old it is. Next is this one. This is a 0.1. Much harder to see where this one went. It's going down to, it's going down to this tube down here. These other caps also sometimes go bad, but not nearly as bad as these other ones. So that's why I'm not doing those right now. I'm just going to do these ones. It's going right down to this tube here, this tube socket, and up to here. Yeah, right to here. The other wires down here to this other tube socket, which can go right alongside of this cap right there. We'll just take that piece off, use it to insulate the new wire, and solder it in place. Okay, that's that one. I've got a couple more. Got this one right here and one more here. This one's not as critical. It'll just hum if this one's bad. It won't burn things up. Okay, this other one here is also crusty. It's been leaking, as you can see. This is a 0.2. Should have another 0.2 somewhere in here. This one goes right down to the power switch. This is one of the bypass caps. But it went down to the switch side of the power switch. I'm just going to get this little power cord out of the way here.
That cap's actually across the filaments of the
Which, of course, depending on what way it was plugged in, being a hot chassis, could either be connected to neutral or connected to line. And generally, a lot of these radios, they actually switch to neutral, but it didn't matter because it's a non-polarized plug. So, a non-polarized plug, you could plug it in either way. When I put the new cord on, I'll measure which one of these is going to the chassis, and we'll make sure that that is the negative, or the neutral negative. This being an AC/DC radio, though, would operate on DC from a battery. And typically, what would happen is if you hooked it up to the battery the wrong way, you'd get no sound. So then you would just reverse it. That is how they worked. Because the battery voltage would still have to pass through the rectifier tube, and of course if you had it connected to the opposite polarity, it just would not conduct anything and you'd get no sound. Always found that interesting. This is an early version of the All-American 5. It was produced from the late 40s on to right through the end of the vacuum tube radio sets. Okay, one more cap that needs to get changed out in here, and it's this one right down here. And then, and this one up here on the antenna. That one's not quite as critical though, but we'll change it anyway. But this one here has to go. This is going to be probably the hardest one to get at, just from where it is. But we'll get it out of here. If I twist it enough, it'll just break off. This one is a 0.005, so 0.0047 is probably what the closest I'm going to have. This one's actually from volume control, so this is going to the grid of the audio stage, which is right down here in an impossible to see place in behind this wire. But I can see where it goes. It's right down here to this tube socket. And the other side of it goes to the volume control, the center tap of the volume control. In theory, when I finish changing this one, I could power this unit up. I'm going to change that one that's on the antenna just for good measure, and then we'll try it out. We'll see how it sounds and see what it picks up. And I should be able to pick up all the local stations, and of course my test transmitter, no problem. This one's a 0.1. So this one just across, one's across the antenna. It connects to the antenna coil and then to the external antenna. So what this is going to be for is just to isolate the external antenna wire from the chassis. Again, because of this being a hot chassis, depending on how you plug it in, it could have 120 volts on the chassis. So you wouldn't want to be hooking this thing up to an outdoor antenna with a wire that's directly connected to the chassis. So this is just a capacitor for safety to isolate the antenna terminal on the back from any possible contact with line voltage. So now the caps have been changed. We'll find a power cord and we'll put a new power cord on here, and fingers crossed we won't have any smoke. I have a piece of double insulated cord here. We'll install this. And typically what we do to stop the cable from being pulled out is we just wrap a big bunch of black tape around here to make it larger than the hole, and then it cannot be pulled out. So that is what I'm going to do. Just going to wrap some tape around the back side of this. Other ways we can do it is tie a knot in it, which is also very effective, but we'll put some tape around here first. That's to make this portion bigger than the hole that it's passing through. And then it's sometimes good practice just to tie these together like this. That way it prevents the wire from being pulled back if that were to slip through, which it won't, but there we go. So now I can connect this up to the power switch and to the other terminal down here, and then the radio should be, fingers crossed, ready to test. This is not a polarized cord, so it really doesn't matter what I connect to what. I didn't have a polarized cord, and the original one wasn't polarized anyway, so no big deal. Anyway, let's connect our power up. I get this wire down here out of the way. Connect one up to where one of the power wires went. Yeah, I can hear somebody complaining now because I'm not putting a fuse in. Oh well. Original one wasn't fused. I'm not really concerned about a fuse because it's not going to be left plugged in running. I'm not going to be using this radio to listen to every day. It's a project. Nobody in their right mind should leave one of these old fire hazards plugged in when they're not using it, because well, unless you want to have a visit from the fire department firsthand, it's not advisable. When you've got these things were fire hazards when they were new, and they have not improved with age. So they're great project radios to work on, and they're kind of fun to listen to once in a while, but this is not your daily driver. You're not going to be listening to this thing every single day, all day long. These radios are meant to kind of be just a showpiece, and when someone wants to hear how they sound, you plug them in, you turn them on, you let them run for a while, and then you unplug them. That's the whole point. You can't catch fire if it's not plugged in. So the whole thing with these is that you don't give the opportunity for it to catch fire. With the new power cord on there, it's a heck of a lot safer than it was before, that's for sure. Alright, let's plug this thing in and see what it does. Okay, power on. Oh, the light even works. Cool. Let's see if we get any sound. Tube's warming up? Must be. Yeah, I see the tubes starting to warm up. That's good. CK&W. How about my test station?
It's an important online resource for men that are struggling with depression.
Gotta clean that control. That volume control needs to be cleaned. So we'll give that a shot of cleaner, and then we'll look at changing that cap. I hear a little bit of AC hum, and that will be this one that's causing that. Being that this is an AC operated radio and this stuff is flammable, we got the power unplugged. We'll give the volume control a shot of cleaner. I hear a little bit of AC hum, which is going to be this filter cap. So I'll go look and find a couple of replacements. 47 microfarad. I probably have some 33 at 450 volts, which will be more than enough. Let's just try tweaking the IF a bit and see if I can improve the reception a bit.
This week's realtors in the province of BC had different ideas about how to help homeowners, and we also saw the interest rate jump up. So we're going to hear from two people from different vantage points in the housing crisis. That is coming up right after the 3:30 news here on the coast on CBC Radio 1. That is 88.1 FM, 690 AM in Vancouver, and 98.3 FM in Squamish. I'm Margaret Gallagher, in for Gloria Mac.
To the Sportsnet app with a Radio Player Canada. Getting you set for all the action. It's Vancouver Canucks game day on the official home of the Canucks, Sportsnet 650 and the Sportsnet Radio Network.
Game day, the Canucks and the New York Islanders. Their first visit to the Islanders' new building. They look to get back on track after the 7-2 loss to the New Jersey Devils Monday night. It's Dan Riccio and Satyar Shah here with you for pre-game puck drop coming. With this team set.
Construction, but he has no
Sort of a delay yet, but if you're trying to get to, like, you know, let's say
That's 7:30.
200th Street area in Langley.
.980 is not that strong here.
Running, that means it likely won't be
That's
back to
better.
normal
Turn it around a
tomorrow
bit.
morning. The rest of Expo line running normally outside those stations.
The lane line and Canada line are not yet.
Directional antenna.
Ukraine and Russia have agreed to create. That doesn't give me a feeling well.
Okay, I got a couple of small caps, or 47 microfarad and 33 microfarad respectively at 450 volts, which is going to be plenty for this. I'm just going to cut these old ones out and just put the new ones in place of this one. We'll put some heat shrink tubing over the connection and stick it inside the cabinet here. You see, it's someone did a bang up job doing this, didn't they? We'll just take this one off back here. Probably didn't even solder it. I bet you they just taped them together. Oh, they actually did solder it. I'm impressed. They certainly didn't do that when they fixed the power cord, though. But we'll tack this one on. It's going to get some heat shrink tubing. I'll tack it onto these existing wires, and we'll see if that improves the audio. Gets rid of that bit of a hum, because I'm sure that these old caps are probably getting a bit weak just due to the age of it. We give it another test once I've got the cap soldered in. Put it back together, and we'll call this one a day. Another little old radio, 75-year-old radio, added to my collection of mini. So say I've got about 9 of these things now. So kind of a collector of old radios. think this will probably do it for this one. We'll just stuff these caps in the bottom here where they're not going to touch anything. Just kind of like that. Let's get them out of the way. And I'll have to check these tubes out at some point, see whether any of them are getting a bit weak. Again, 75 years old, probably the tubes are starting to get a bit weak, but let's put the unit in its cabinet so that I can hear how it sounds once everything's bolted back in. Okay, there it is, back together. Let it warm up.
The war in Ukraine is a big part of this story as well. The rally in oil did stall with crude oil pretty volatile here.
Actually sounds pretty good.
Last 24 hours. West Texas Intermediate did get over 116.
Test transmitter. It hums.
Volume on Highway 1 East, starting before Kensington. It's super slow through that Burnaby Lake stretch, especially bad at the merge points. Recovery mode happening, but still very busy there. Pitt River Bridge is okay.
There we go. Okay, I'm going to say that this one is a success. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one. Bye.